Hello, hello. Hi, Jamie. How are you?
Very well indeed, actually. A little bit warm, a little bit humid here in the UK today, but it almost feels like I only ever see you at the moment here on the LinkedIn live sessions. We're all
It's,
so busy, but all good,
it's the
thank you.
highlight of my week, and you're absolutely right. The sun is shining in the UK. Don't know where everyone is around the world, but feel free to go ahead and drop your location in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. And again, welcome so much to our weekly higher education series that Juniper is hosting throughout the summer. Today we have an awesome topic. We're talking about health and well-being. Again, I'm your host. My name is Cottrell, and I am joined by my esteemed colleague, Jamie Pitchforth, who is responsible for higher education across Europe, Middle East, and Africa here at Juniper. So again, Jamie, hi, welcome. Thanks for joining us again.
Absolute pleasure.
So it's no secret that health and well-being is top of mind for a lot of folks right now. I think it's definitely something that's very relevant, certainly for organizations all around the world who are launching various initiatives to drive awareness and support, whether it's their employees, whether it's students, and for universities, it's definitely no different. So, Jamie, I guess my first question for today is based on your experience and the work that you do with universities across, this side of the world. How has that topic made its way into the higher education agenda?
No, absolutely, Keir. So, sadly, mental health and mental illness across the student communities is really been growing year on year. I say back since the turn of the century, but probably before that. But certainly for the last sort of 15 to 20 years, it has been getting worse. One of the big challenges with that is that you can't see it. You don't know whether Jamie or Keir or anyone else that we communicate with is really struggling behind the scenes with some form of mental health or health illness. So what are the universities doing? I think that's the important thing. It's that recognition that there is a problem and that they need to do something about it. So they're investing in proactive awareness services, reactive support services, a lot more counselling services for those with declared and I suppose non-declared health difficulties. One of the symptoms of mental health in that respect is withdrawn behaviour. So being able to identify that student that is withdrawing a little bit from the university environment. So these are things that the universities are very aware of. They get to see. And there are a lot of really, quite sad facts that sit behind this. And I wanted to really shout out some of those key facts for the UK, and I'll do the same for you guys or those that are in the US as well. But it is the same across Europe and the APAC region, quite literally around the world. But over here, according to the Office of what we call the National Statistics, so it's a government agency, 1 in 5 students is struggling with some form of mental health. So that's depression and anxiety being number 1 and number 2. When you look at that, that's 1 in 4 students. Okay, 1 in 4 students. 1 in 5 students is struggling, but a student sadly commits suicide every 4 days here in the UK. So if you take if you take a snapshot of 100,000 students, what we've been seeing year on year is about 4.7 deaths from suicide per 100,000. In the US, unfortunately, it's actually a lot worse. So there was approximately 24,000 students that attempted suicide in the US last year. 1,100 of them sadly succeeded. But in recent surveys over in the US, 65% of college students either know somebody who or are associated with somebody who's either attempted or actually died by suicide. And it's really for these reasons that the health and well-being agenda, that suicide is absolutely top of mind and really a strategic priority for universities around the world. And I think what's really magnified that is the pandemic. So actually bringing students back to campus, which is the number 1 priority for I think every university around the world, has really identified and really allowed the universities to focus that not only bringing them back, but bringing them back to a safe and secure environment, bringing them back with, the best sort of support mechanisms, the best facilities that they possibly can, so that they can thrive and succeed in their students' communities.
So Jamie, those numbers are very astounding. And just a disclaimer to anyone who's listening in, if this is an uncomfortable topic, I mean, our intention today is really to talk about how technology can help, whether it's driving awareness or, the certain different programs we're seeing a lot of educational institutions put forward and the support mechanisms that they're leveraging to help drive awareness around student well-being and to help safeguard, especially those students who are, maybe feeling isolated. And I definitely think there's been a little bit of a shift in responsibility. And again, this is not specific to higher education, right? This is across the board, organizations everywhere. But it's really interesting, this role that technology plays. I mean, can you talk a little bit more about?
Yeah, I think just going in, and I did kind of allude to it in the opening there, the indicators.
Yep.
So today's modern digital networks, it's beyond just connectivity and all the great wireless services that and experiences that we're able to deliver. But it's being able to identify and take insights from the network and use those insights to develop intelligence that we can start to look at trends, we can start to look at some really granular data and use that data as indicators to inform us. And inform us in many, many different ways. But when it comes to I suppose, health and student well-being, as I said at the beginning there, withdrawn behavior is a really, key indicator that somebody might be struggling. Yeah. So looking at that profile from a, if we say location services, looking at footfall data, looking at data and integration of the network with other platforms. So within the universities, we have virtual learning environments, we have timetabling systems, library systems, all of those timestamp, the student, when they last used it, how often they used it. So we can take those indicators and really start to get what I would say is a 360-degree view down to the granularity of an individual student, how often they're on campus, how consistently they're engaging in the community. And I think that engagement is really a key thing because it takes the sort of health and well-being and adds in student loneliness as well. So that ability to from the network, the technology, to take these indicators to inform us and turn what is currently reactive services. So, we all applaud the universities around the world on the amount of investment they're making to really drive new services or support services for students that are struggling. But one of the key things that comes with that is that those services are typically reactive. So they demand that the student or a confidant of the student reaches out to get that help. Now, anyone that knows anybody or has been associated with anybody who has struggled with mental health difficulties will know that withdrawn behaviour, that let's come away, let's stay in the halls of residence. I want to put my head under the duvet and shy away from the world. I don't want to participate in with large groups of people. That behaviour is a key indicator. So being able to really see the change in that footfall, that use those indicators from the network, that intelligence, to give that early warning system is a absolute game changer in being able to offer proactively that support to somebody who may or may not be struggling, but to at least reach out that olive branch, reach out that hand and say, do you need help? Are you okay? Do we need to help, get you support and really, resolve any issues that you may have?
It is interesting because we talk about AI a lot in our own solution and using these actionable insights to drive proactive mitigation when there's problems on the network. And what you're suggesting kind of sounds like being able to use these actionable insights to proactively provide support to a student. But what I love the most about this is it's shifting this experience from, we're not just focusing on the academic success and delivering this esteemed educational experience. I mean, you said providing that 360 view of a student, that's caring for a student holistically, both physically, mentally, emotionally, and really using habits and data that's collected, that intelligence from the network to track how a student is doing. I mean, this is actually, it's quite a new concept, don't you think?
It is a new concept, and I know it will bring in and raise with a number of people privacy questions, GDPR, etc., etc. But I think that the technology is there. What we have to do is give those students and the staff as well the option and the ability to opt in and opt out. Every time we download as individuals, we download applications to our phones or to our iPads and other devices. We accept, we accept the usage policy, we accept the terms and conditions, and off we go. In the majority of instances, students, us as individuals, have got multiple applications that know exactly where we are at any given time of the day, how often we've been in a certain location, how often we've done this, and how often we've done that. What we're saying is that we take that data and we use that data for really valuable purposes. And when I say valuable, from the moment a student joins the university to the moment that they leave the university, there is a trajectory, an optimum trajectory that we want to see. And that trajectory is a trajectory towards student success. So if we can then start to identify in real time and on a consistent, regular basis, is that student on the right path? Are they on that right trajectory for student success? And we're not so interested in those that sit above the line. We're interested in those that are falling below the line, those that may be struggling, that may need some form of help. It doesn't necessarily have to be help with health and well-being. It could be, academic support. But so much of the health and well-being issues come from people that are struggling academically, that they're not living up to expectations, that people are, looking at them and they're not achieving. And that's a downward spiral then into anxiety, depression, and then we get into, start getting into some really unfortunate and nasty areas. So these indicators that we can now take from the network across the piece, that's why I say 360 degrees, are absolutely critical.
And it's interesting because I do see, you mentioned a couple examples of different applications and programs that you've seen, but it is creating almost this digital community, this digital environment that creates a sense of inclusion. And we've talked a lot about this in past sessions. And I know if you've been tuning in, you've heard me say this term, but I love this idea of a dual purpose network. Once again, leveraging that infrastructure to not only provide that brilliant connectivity, but to support these different applications, to support these different devices, because this is where, as a society, we're moving towards this digital age, and especially the younger generation, this connected now, it really has an opportunity to provide that sense of well-being and inclusion for students, and especially on campus, right?
Yeah, and I think, absolutely, and the inclusion piece is really, really key. And I wanted to give you, one more example of where we can really, this is a game changer. This, if you've got the right infrastructure and we can gain access to the right indicators, then student loneliness. Student loneliness, again, is something that's typically invisible, but it's very hard for students that may be away from their parents and their families for the first time ever to integrate themselves within, the university community. And often that will lead to loneliness. So, the question is, how do you identify that lonely person in a crowded room? And I think technology really does have the answer. Being able to see that, somebody's been in the library, but they were sitting alone. Somebody's been, in somewhere else on the campus, that they're typically, alone and not within a group, that they're not attending and joining clubs and activities. It's quite easy to identify and pull those indicators out to identify that person. Now, we're not interested in approaching that individual, but where technology can really make a difference is that we can start to use things like engagement, which is a platform across the network. So based on your, let's call it a loneliness score, we can start to push content to you. Now that content, if you've got a low loneliness score and you're identified as somebody who needs that support, we can then start to communicate and push activities, groups, events, and other things to you proactively to try and bring you out of your shell and get that inclusion that is so important. And again, absolute game changer for the universities in really driving that happy, healthy student is the student that is going to go on the right trajectory towards that student success.
And what I love about this, because there's a lot of different applications out there, and there's a lot of industries who are already using this. I mean, think about when you take a flight somewhere, right? Creating this very individualized experience. We're now looking at how do we apply that to the day in the life of a student, especially one on campus, to make sure, again, we're looking at that 360 view and leveraging the network to help drive that and including insight to network utilization, which I wanted to ask. I know we only have a couple minutes left, but as a father, you've talked a lot about your daughters getting ready to go off to university. How can this example, what we're talking about, this almost view into how a student is engaged, their engagement level, what access they have to resources, as a parent who is sending their son or daughter off to college, off to university, who's going to go living on campus, what kind of programs do you see or have you seen being deployed across your helping the parent, right? Giving them a little sense of ease. They're sending their babies off, right?
It's a really, really good one. I mean, certainly here in Europe, the duty of care, when they're below 18 years old, then giving those parents access is a mandatory thing. When they get to 18 and beyond, then really it's down to my daughter to say that I could have access. But what's really important is these indicators do two things. They're front office and back office. So back office being the operational people, allowing the operations of the university, the student services, the pastoral care, the counsellors, allowing those guys to see those indicators and identify where they need to focus their attention. But if you flip that then to the student app, so the majority of the universities nowadays have got a student app. So we can use these indicators for that student to identify themselves, the scores they take in tests, how they're progressing with various different parts of their academic and research life, their attendance, their engagement on campus, their activities. All of that is a really, really important indicator. And if I was a student going to university, being able to see that I was on the right track would be a really valuable thing. So being able to open that up to the parents as well, again, is absolutely super valuable. So that I can see that my daughter's engaged, that she's doing all the right things, that she's on a good trajectory, that we're giving her, all the right support and help as parents. So I think it serves so many different purposes. It's exciting technology that will transform education and research around the world.
Absolutely, Jamie. And before I allow you to do some final thoughts, I just want to say thank you for joining us today. I know that these conversations can be a bit uncomfortable. Unfortunately, this is the reality that we're in right now. And we're very fortunate at Juniper that we offer, a technology that helps enable these types of programs and applications. And we work with a number of different ecosystem partners who also are looking into different kinds of solutions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Jamie, any final thoughts before we close off?
No, I think just from those that are starting their journey around transformation, modernization, and digitalization is really, look beyond the network more than just the connectivity. As you say in your very own words, Keir, that dual purpose network, it can really deliver a lot of value and turn the network, therefore, into a strategic asset and business enabler for the universities.
Absolutely. Beautiful words. Thank you so much again for your time. And thank you everyone for joining. Please feel free to join us next week, June 23rd. We'll be back here, same time, talking about cost reduction across higher education. Look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day, folks, and stay cool.
Thank you.